Imagine waking up one morning and deciding the country you live in no longer defines you. Imagine creating your own flag, your own currency, and your own laws, and then trying to convince the world to take you seriously. This isn't fiction. It's the true story of a man who built his own nation from nothing and turned it into a multi-million-dollar idea that still echoes across the world today. It's a story of rebellion, innovation, and the power of one individual to redefine the limits of freedom. This is the journey of Michael Oliver, the man who created his own country and his own currency, and in doing so, changed history. If you believe that great ideas still have the power to shape the world, subscribe to this channel and stay with me until the end. You're about to hear one of the most extraordinary stories ever told. Our story begins in the aftermath of war. Michael Oliver was born in Lithuania in 1928, a nation torn apart by conflict and control. As a child, he saw how easily power could destroy lives. And he made a silent promise to himself. If he ever escaped, he would never again live under tyranny. When he finally reached the United States, he was filled with gratitude, but also a sense of disappointment. Freedom, he discovered, was not absolute. Bureaucracy, taxation, and the constant intrusion of government weighed heavily on him. He believed that liberty wasn't something granted by rulers. It was something people had to build for themselves. As he grew older, that belief hardened into an obsession. He read philosophy, studied economics, and began to wonder, what if you could just start over entirely? What if it were possible to build a new nation, one that truly embodied freedom? Night after night, he filled thick notebooks with plans. He drew sketches of cities surrounded by sea, governed not by coercion, but by consent. He dreamed of a world where money had real value, where trade was completely voluntary, and where citizens lived without fear of government overreach. That dream would soon become the foundation for one of the boldest experiments in modern history. By the mid-1960s, Michael Oliver was no longer content with just theories. He wanted action. He gathered engineers, investors, and fellow libertarians who shared his vision. Together, they designed what they called the Republic of Minerva. It wouldn't exist within any nation's borders. It would be built upon a coral reef in the South Pacific, far from the reach of any government. There, on the open ocean, they would pour sand, raise a flag, and declare independence. In 1972, Oliver's team began transporting sand and supplies to a reef just north of Tonga. The dream was becoming real. Photographs from that time show men standing proudly beside a flag bearing a golden sun, the emblem of a new beginning. They wrote a Declaration of Independence, minted their own coins, and envisioned a society run entirely by voluntary cooperation. The Republic of Minerva would have no taxes, no tariffs, and no rulers, only agreements between equals. For a brief, shining moment, the world had a new country, one born not from war or politics, but from pure imagination. But every dream meets resistance. The Kingdom of Tonga, located nearby, soon heard of Oliver's creation. Its leaders were not amused. They claimed the reef belonged to Tonga by right of proximity. Within weeks, Tongan soldiers arrived at the new island. They tore down the Minervan flag, raised their own, and declared the territory annexed. The world's newspapers mocked Oliver's project. Headlines called it a utopian failure and a kingdom of sand. For most people, that would have been the end. But Oliver refused to give up. He believed that the experiment, though crushed, had proven a point that freedom could exist, if only for a moment, outside the boundaries of government control. He told his supporters that Minerva hadn't failed. It had revealed just how fragile the illusion of authority truly was. Even as he watched the sea reclaim the reef, Oliver began planning his next move. As the years passed, the world changed. Technology advanced, and the idea of freedom began to shift from geography to information. In the 1980s and 90s, new thinkers emerged who no longer believed a nation required land. To them, sovereignty existed in consent, not territory. Oliver watched these movements with fascination. Though his island was gone, his philosophy lived on. He began collaborating with innovators who sought to build digital communities, offshore corporations, and borderless financial systems. His central belief that the individual, not the government, should control wealth and freedom became the cornerstone of a new ideology. Minerva had been a physical nation. Its successor would be a digital one. In online circles and libertarian conferences, Oliver's name became legendary. His failure had turned into an inspiration for a new generation ready to challenge the very boundaries of nations themselves. For Oliver, money was always the key. He believed that governments maintain control through currency printing value out of nothing and enslaving citizens through inflation. To break that chain, he introduced a private currency, the Minerva dollar. Each coin was backed by silver, tangible and honest, representing a contract of trust between free individuals. It was a radical idea, decades ahead of its time. When people today talk about decentralized finance and digital assets like cryptocurrency, they are unknowingly echoing Oliver's vision. He foresaw a world where value could move freely, without permission, a world where money served the individual, not the state. Although the Minerva dollar never became a global currency, its symbolism changed everything. It showed that wealth could be built not from laws, but from belief. And as history has proven, belief can move nations, even nations that don't yet exist. The Republic of Minerva was gone, but its spirit was immortal. Across the world, others began following in Oliver's footsteps. Micronations emerged in every corner of the globe, each one a small act of defiance against the idea that power belongs only to the powerful. There was Sealand, a fortress at sea, turned into an independent principality. There was Liberland in Europe, founded on a patch of unclaimed land between Croatia and Serbia. There were artists declaring independence from taxes, communities building floating cities, and programmers crafting entire worlds online. All of them, knowingly or not, carried a fragment of Oliver's dream. His message had escaped the confines of geography. It had entered the collective imagination. Today, we see his influence everywhere in digital nomads who live without borders, in entrepreneurs who register companies offshore, and in anyone who believes that identity and freedom can be self-defined. Michael Oliver didn't just create a country. He created a question that still challenges us today. What truly makes a nation? Is it the land beneath our feet? Or is it the agreement of minds who refuse to be ruled? In the quiet years before his death, Michael Oliver often returned to the sea. Friends recall him staring at the horizon, the waves breaking softly against the shore where his nation once stood. He never expressed regret. To him, Minerva had never failed. It had fulfilled its purpose to prove that human freedom is possible. He believed that borders are illusions and laws are temporary, but that ideas are eternal. The world may have laughed at the man who built a nation of sand, yet history now remembers him as a pioneer, one who dared to imagine sovereignty as a personal right, not a political gift. Every innovation that pushes against authority, from open source movements to decentralized money, carries his spirit. The island may have sunk, but the idea still rises, wave after wave, with every generation that refuses to be confined. The story of Michael Oliver is not just a story of rebellion. It's a reminder that the limits of our world are drawn by those who stop dreaming. He taught us that freedom begins in the mind and that every great transformation starts with a single decision, the decision to act. So the next time you hear someone say that something is impossible, remember the man who created his own country, minted his own currency, and built an idea so powerful it still challenges the meaning of nations. If this story inspired you, subscribe to this channel and join a community that celebrates the thinkers, rebels, and dreamers who shape our world. Because somewhere, perhaps even now, another Michael Oliver is sketching the blueprints for tomorrow's revolution, one that will once again remind us that imagination is the greatest power on earth. Thank you for watching.